15 lesser-known wrestling children we didn't even recognize.
If you are brand new to our channel, we invite you to take a moment to subscribe. Just click on the lit red button as well as the gray bell. Why the bell? Well, it will let you know every time we post a new video.
15.
Brittany Page, DDP. During his real-life relationship with ex-wife Kimberly Page, the couple produced 2 daughters, one of which is Brittany Page, the smoke bomb you see in the photo above. She was first introduced to the world of wrestling through DDP's yoga practice, and it now looks as though she's walking in similar footsteps as her dad, undergoing pro wrestling training. Brittany recently posted the pic of herself and father DDP training inside of a wrestling ring. She certainly got the looks to thrive in the business with a background as a fitness competitor, similar to the likes of Alexa Bliss. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll be seeing her hit a diamond cutter of her own in a WWE ring. But for now, she'll continue on with the training in hopes of making it in the big leagues one day.
14.
Terrell and Terrence Hughes, Devon Dudley. Yup, that's right, a tag team specialist. Devon had 2 kids that both got into the tag team scene themselves, though Devon admitted that he wasn't too thrilled initially with their decision. Had Devon lasted a little longer, perhaps we could have witnessed something truly remarkable as his sons competed against himself and Bubba in a once-in-a-lifetime type matchup. Devon had 4 kids during his wrestling career. You'd figure sleep wasn't the easiest to come by. He had Terrell and Terrence in the mid-90s, and had 2 other kids later in 2001 and 2008. Devon remains with the WWE today in a backstage role as a producer. As for his kids, they wrestled with Impact briefly, and continued their dream via the Indies. It remains to be seen what the future has in store for Devon's kids.
13.
David Benoit, Chris Benoit. The WWE doesn't share any Chris Benoit information, so for that reason, you might not have known that he's got a son in David Benoit. Chris actually had 2 marriages, and in his first with ex-wife Martina, he had 2 children, Megan and the previously mentioned David. David Benoit is a huge fan of the wrestling business. His Twitter is loaded with everything pro wrestling, from Chris Jericho's recent action in New Japan to paying homage to his father's legacy with various retweets from fans. It looks as though, according to his passion for the business, perhaps even David might be stepping into the ring at some point in the future. Some might call it controversial, but he was also given backstage access at a recent live WWE event. He remains close to several wrestlers including Chris Jericho, who was, and still is, very close to the family. 12. Dominick Gutierrez, Rey Mysterio. Man, oh man, are we ever getting old? For those that followed the WWE religiously in the early 2000s, who can forget the introduction of Rey Mysterio's real-life son during a storyline? Well, that same son Dominic is now all grown up as you see in the photo above, and he's planning on walking in similar footsteps as his father Rey. Mysterio admitted to this on a recent podcast. His son is currently training to be a professional wrestler, but you can expect a different style in comparison to Rey. After all, it's nearly impossible to duplicate Rey's in-ring demeanor. The guy was truly something unique and special. We might see Dominic inside a WWE ring down the road, but for now, rumors persist in a possible Rey Mysterio return at some point in 2018. With a lighter schedule, Mysterio has been in some fantastic matches on the indie scene despite his age of 43. Proving he's still got it, a WWE return remains a huge possibility.
11.
7. Amy Hennig, Curt Hennig. Although he loved the party life aspect of being a WWE superstar, Hennig was married for quite some time, and he and his ex-wife had 4 children during their time together before the divorce. One of Hennig's sons is well known as he's been a WWE superstar for quite some time, Curtis Axel. However, the late legend also had a daughter who endured a brief stint in the business, Amy Hennig. Now, Curtis doesn't look all that similar to his father, however Amy looks eerily similar to her dad with the signature long and curly locks. Trained by the great Harley Race, Amy didn't have the same success as her dad and brother, leaving the industry a few years after her training and indie stint. Many fail to recognize Hennig had a daughter that was in the business at one point.
10.
10. Dakota Averey, Goldust. A little known fact about Goldust is that he's a proud papa outside of the ring. While he was married to Terry Runnels, the former couple had a child back in 1994, Dakota Averey. Goldust proudly showcased his daughter at past Hall of Fame ceremonies. He's even acknowledged her numerous times via social media. Dakota is also a user of Twitter, and if you scroll through her account briefly, you'll see just how proud she is of her father, who remains in the business despite the fact that he's nearing his 50s, at 48 years old. Nonetheless, he still moves exceptionally well inside of the ring, which is shocking for someone with that much mileage. After all, he started wrestling in the late 80s. It remains to be seen when Dustin's career will come to a close, but one thing's for sure, he'll remain a part of the company for a very long time even after his in-ring days are up.
9.
9. Tessa Blanchard, Tully Blanchard. The casual wrestling fan might not know that Tessa Blanchard is actually the daughter of the great Tully Blanchard. Tessa began her wrestling journey in 2014, and is now a mainstay on the indie circuit. Despite the fact that she's still only 22, the North Carolina native looks like an absolute natural in the ring, and that was on full display during her brief cameo at the Mae Young Classic, taking on Kairi Sane in one of the better matches of the entire tournament. Although her involvement was limited, we have no doubts we'll be seeing more of her in a WWE ring at some point down the road. She's got future NXT Women's Champion written all over her. For now, it's actually her boyfriend Ricochet who will be joining the company. According to recent speculation, he's signed a deal with the WWE, and a debut seems highly likely in the very near future.
8.
8. Ariel Teal Toombs, Roddy Piper. The legendary Roddy Piper left behind 4 children when he suddenly passed away at the age of 61. A rarity in the wrestling business, Piper was married to his wife throughout his career, spanning from the early 80s till his sad death in 2015. Among his kids included daughter Ariel Teal Toombs, who's actually an actress appearing in several lower-level films and TV shows. No doubt Piper's smiling down at her from high above. The legend's legacy will live on in the WWE, and in pro wrestling in general, for a terrific career as a trailblazing heel. Piper was revolutionary in the sense that his promos were one of the greatest ways he'd generate heat among his opponents, something that wasn't such a norm back in the day. His work got so good that despite being a heel, he still received cheers, a concept ahead of its time. What a legend.
7.
7. Shia Brookside, Robbie Brookside. Current NXT trainer Robbie Brookside didn't have the most memorable career over in North America. However, he knows how to work inside of the squared circle, and for that reason, he was invited to NXT to train future superstars of the company. Once his career's done with, he'll look at his time down in NXT fondly, though that's not likely to be his only proud moment. He's also got a daughter, Shia Brookside, who despite being only 18 is already earning her stripes on the indie scene as a huge prospect for the future. Given his pull down in development, we have no doubt that she'll be featured with the WWE at some point following her indie run. As a former pool women's champion, the future's looking quite strong for Shia. Who knows, maybe we'll see Robbie's daughter and Tully's daughter go head-to-head in a WWE or NXT ring one day competing for a major women's championship.
6.
6. Rachael Ellering, Paul Ellering. A couple of interesting tidbits about Rachael Ellering. Not only is she the daughter of NXT manager Paul Ellering, but she's also dating a pretty major NXT star, Cassius Ohno. Age 25, Ellering began her pro wrestling training back in 2015, and was immediately brought into NXT, making a couple of appearances on the show, though it doesn't appear as though she ever signed a permanent deal. Rachael would return to the company for the Mae Young Classic, making it to the second round, though once again, she was not kept on the roster. Appearing for Impact Wrestling, and as a mainstay on the indie scene, Ellering continues to gain experience outside of the WWE. Perhaps the third time's a charm, and she'll be picked up by the company permanently.
5.
5. Cody Hall, Scott Hall. Yup, Scott Hall has a son in the wrestling industry working his craft overseas with the likes of New Japan and Pro Wrestling Noah. Hall continues to make a name for himself out on the indie scene since 2012. The experience is great, especially when you consider the fact that he's still only 26. Cody has the look to thrive in the WWE one day, and it won't be too shocking to see him in a WWE ring sooner rather than later. As for his dad Scott, the Hall of Famer had 2 failed marriages, one to his ex-wife Dane Bergio, and another one which lasted merely a year to Jessica Hart. His initial divorce was due to an ongoing drug problem, though the couple would give it another shot and later have 2 children, the previously mentioned Cody and later, a daughter.
4.
4. Karl Anderson, 3 children. The hilarious part about Karl Anderson's personal life is the fact that his wife is referred to as the hot Asian wife online. He's kept things on the down low pertaining to the details about his wife aside from her aforementioned nickname. You also wouldn't realize that he's quietly the proud father of 3 children that took from their mother, and the picture above is an example of that. In the business since 2000, Anderson finally opted to come back home in search of a stable contract. He might not be getting the greatest push alongside his partner, though they'll appreciate the steady contract, which is likely of the utmost importance at this point in Anderson's career as he edges closer to his 40s, set to turn 38 in just a couple of days.
3.
3. Arista Metcalf and Devon Parker, Kane. Kane has done a fantastic job of separating his real life and the pro wrestling business during his long stay with the WWE. It's crazy to think, but Kane started in the wrestling business way back in the early 90s and landed a WWE deal in 1995. He bounced around some awful gimmicks, but finally struck gold as the evil brother of The Undertaker. He hasn't looked back since, and it's insane to think that he's still in the main event picture more than 2 decades later. Talk about longevity. Out of the ring, he's one heck of a family man as well, though that part has been kept on the down low. A rarity in the wrestling business, Kane has been married to the same woman since 1995, his longtime wife Crystal Goins. The couple have 2 daughters, and are also both proud grandparents. The shot above is a surprising picture featuring one of Kane's daughters, along with his wife.
2.
2. Shaul Guerrero, Eddie Guerrero. Before his sudden and tragic passing, the great Eddie Guerrero left behind his wife Vicky, along with 3 daughters, Shaul, Sherilyn and Kaylee. His legacy is still celebrated by the WWE to this day. We miss you, Eddie. One of his daughters, Shaul, actually once aspired to walk in her father's footsteps and become a WWE superstar. Despite her limited experience, Shaul was offered a contract by the WWE and reported to FCW and later NXT. Sadly, her career came to an end as she was battling an eating disorder during her time down in WWE developmental. The story does have a nice finish, however, as she met her future husband while training at the PC, current SmackDown Live star Aiden English. The couple got married 2 years ago in early January of 2016, and remain happily together today.
1.
1. Myelin Lesnar, Brock Lesnar. Outside of the ring, Brock's a closed book, so much so that he moved all the way to Saskatchewan, Canada, to get away from people and live life on a secluded freezing cold ranch. Yup, he doesn't like people all that much, and he's made that quite clear. What we do know about Brock is the fact that he has 2 kids with his current wife Sable, Turk and Duke. Along with the children, a little known fact about Brock is that he's also got another 2 kids from a prior relationship to his ex-fiancée. During his time with his ex, Lesnar had twins, a boy and a girl. Luke and Myelin are both Brock's kids as well, and the photo above is a snippet of Maya, who resembles Brock a heck of a lot. Like her father, she's regarded as an exceptional athlete.
Yeah.